Good evening and a very warm welcome to iQuanta's YouTube channel. And this is our topic for the day. And I'm extremely thankful for you for sticking around, although we faced some issues and therefore the session got delayed somewhat. अब पता है यार ऑनलाइन वाले सेशन जब डिले हो रहे होते हैं ना तो अंदर अंदर से अजीब तो लगता है ना, कुछ पता नहीं होता है कहाँ है क्या है. हाँ, so I'm very mindful of that, but this is our second VALR marathon. फर्स्ट वाले में थोड़ा ग्रामर फोकस ज़्यादा था. आज बाकी सारी चीज़ें जो जो एग्जाम में आती है, वी ऑफ कोर्स प्लान टू गो ahead and look at each one of those things. Okay, so if you happen to have any questions, issues or concerns with respect to some specific area, some specific aspect, do let me know and I'll just try to talk a little more about those areas. Otherwise, every question type that has been asked in the exam over the course of last 5-6 years is something that you will find in this session for sure. Okay, so very good evening. Loads of people बोल रहा न्यू लुक. अरे यार वो न्यू लुक नहीं है भाई, वो एक्चुअली सेशन लेना था और जहाँ से लेना था वहाँ पहुँच नहीं पाए, तो जैसे थे वैसे ही सेशन लेने आ गए. हाँ, तो क्रिटिकल रीजनिंग, ओके नैन्सी, गॉट इट. सर अभी भी पार्टी मोड में. पार्टी मोड में मैं वैसे मतलब या तो कभी भी नहीं रहता या हमेशा रहता हूँ, जैसे मर्जी देख लो. सो no change. Okay, fill in the blanks, done. Poems done. How much time to give to each RC? Ayush, let me address this question straight away. Okay, so unlike the CAT exam where we do have sectional time limits, in the XAT exam there is no sectional time limit. You can switch between part A, part B, part C as you wish. And the irony is that was the first exam that introduced sectional time limits, even in the era when it was a paper based test. तो ये सेक्शनल टाइम लिमिट होती थी, कैट में नहीं होती थी. अब दुनिया ऊपर से नीचे हुए है. कैट हैज सेक्शनल टाइम लिमिट, दैट डज नॉट. नाउ व्हेन यू डू नॉट हैव एनी सेक्शनल टाइम लिमिट, इट मीन्स दैट योर क्वेश्चन सिलेक्शन बिकम्स इंपॉर्टेंट. Okay, so you're not comparing one question with the other questions of the same section. You're comparing that question with everything else in the paper, and you obviously want to go ahead and attempt those things first which are easier for you, which are less time consuming for you. So वो थोड़ा सा ध्यान रखना. तो ऐसा fixed mindset नहीं लेकर के जाना कि I would want to devote this kind of time. I mean, it's very important for you to go through all the 3 sections and follow a round-based approach, round-based strategy. So what it means is that, okay, typically what I do is that I will give myself a certain amount of time for the entire section. Right? Okay, so let us say that I decide I'll give 25 minutes to every section or 30 minutes to every section. 25 is a lot, right? So in those 25 minutes, my goal is to reach the last question. So when I read every question, if I find that I can solve it or answer it easily, in under a minute, I'll attempt it right now. If I think that, okay, I can solve it, but it may take a little longer, I'll mark it as a second round question and move on. So the goal is to reach the end of that section within that allotted time. Then move over to the next section, then next, and after that, now that you've gone through the entire paper, you've seen every question and you have time left, now you go back to the respective sections with the aim of maximizing your score. Okay, तो ऐसा fixed नहीं लेकर के जाना. Oh, and a very, very happy new year to you too, guys. I forgot to wish you because there was a tiny bit of a delay, but I wish that this year goes on to fulfill all your dreams that you have. And if you feel that some of your dreams are not getting fulfilled, I pray on your behalf to the God to ensure that those were the dreams which were actually counterproductive for you, and that is why they did not materialize. So something amazing, amazing. Wishing something amazing for you this year. Okay, critical reasoning बिल्कुल कर लेंगे नैन्सी, हो गया. चलिए, so let's go ahead and start now. Let's begin. So here are the directions for the first 5 questions. In each one of these questions, you'll get what you are supposed to know within a question. So these 5 are basically independent questions. There is no unification there. So here is the first one for you. Please go ahead, read it and then tell me what you think. So what's your answer here? Bruh, can you tell me how to improve accuracy in RCs and VA? भाई बहुत जेनेरिक सवाल नहीं हो गया पेपर से एक हफ्ता पहले? सत्यम पैरा समरी नहीं कर रहे यार आज. पैरा समरी एक ही बार आई है पिछले 5 साल में, वो कैट में ऑलरेडी बहुत कवर हो गया, सो उसको इग्नोर कर रहे हैं आज. ओके, सो दीप्ति एंड मून वाज व्हाट मयंक है ना, have shared their answers. Let's see. प्रयास की तरफ से अच्छा प्रयास. हाँ कुणाल मॉक में थे, मैं एक्चुअल पेपर की बात कर रहा था भाई. एक्चुअल जैट जो पिछले 5-6 साल में आए उनमें शायद एक ही बार पैरा समरी आया. ओके सो चलिए, सो लेट्स स्टार्ट. सो व्हाट डज दिस क्वेश्चन रियली आस्क? Which of the following conditional sentences are grammatically incorrect? So you know what conditional sentences are? Those if-then kind of sentences, and there are 4 types. So let us see. If I buy a car, I will teach you to drive. That's correct. So because one is correct, option A and C get ruled out automatically. She would have punished you if you would have confessed. यार अगर if वाले side में we never use would have. So if you have this would plus have plus verbs third form on the outcome side, then your condition side is supposed to use had. Okay, and not would have. So second is incorrect, which means that second is supposed to be a part of my answer. So I am already leaning towards D and E. Let us check. Okay, third, I will not tell your whereabouts unless the police will ask me. Whoa. So unless is basically nothing but if plus not. So if I convert it into your classic if sentence, if the police will not ask me. We in conditional sentences, we never use future tense on the side of the condition. So third is also incorrect. Second is incorrect, third is incorrect. Answer should be E. But let's also quickly check 4, 5 and 6 in case somebody has a doubt. If you had asked me, I would have helped. That's correct. Even if I would ask him, he would not come. What did I tell you about second? We never use would here. So this is definitely wrong. I would not go out if I were you. That's absolutely correct. This is a condition which says that the outcome here is not guaranteed. So in case you are not 100% sure of these structures, this is the area that you need to go ahead and revise. In fact, I've talked about it in one of our YouTube sessions. You can go ahead and look at that too. Sixth में was नहीं आएगा क्या ना? So there is a particular conditional sentence which deals with hypothetical situations. So in these sentences, we use the simple past tense or where, irrespective of the subject. Even if the subject is singular, we always use where. Remember those sentences? Remember that essay topic that you got back in school? If you were the Prime Minister, if I were the Prime Minister, that structure. Okay. So saying why 5 is incorrect. Even if I would ask him, okay, the correction here would be, even if I asked him, he would not come. So instead of would ask, it should have been asked. Okay, so even if I asked him, he would not come. In the third, the correction will be, I will not unless the police ask me. Okay, unless the police ask me. So I hope that helps. नहीं दीप्ति ऐसा कुछ नहीं है, वो क्लॉजेज हो सकते हैं एक सेंटेंस में एक से ज्यादा जिनमें वुड आए, ऐसा कोई फॉर्मूला नहीं है. ओके, नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन नंबर 2. व्हाट्स योर टेक? डोंट फॉरगेट टू रीड द डायरेक्शंस. ओके, Okay, so Pratik is the first one to share the answer. Pratik thinks E is the grammatically correct version. Chale, let me start giving you some hints. Okay, just focus on one of the things. So I see has nudged, had nudged, have nudged, have nudged, nudged. So basically A, C and D are using the present perfect tense. B and E, B is using the past perfect tense, E is using the simple past or the past indefinite tense. So I think this is one of the things you can actually think of which tense do we require. So first up, which tense would you require? Once you have looked at the tense, let me highlight another part. Then the next thing that you can focus on is has versus have. This will help you. At least one of these two can be eliminated on the basis of this. Okay, so lot of different things that we are getting. Okay, so I think some of us have chosen A. See, what has nudged are the hopes, which is plural. So you cannot use has. A is definitely ruled out. When do we use the past perfect tense? Past perfect tense is used when your sentence talks about two completed actions in the past. Because your sentence does not talk about two completed actions of the past, you can eliminate B. Okay, and between C, D and E, this is a sentence where you require present perfect tense. Recently gives you a hint. So you can eliminate even E. So between C and D, now what is the difference between C and D? India will reach a deal to help cooperative and retail banks. Borrowed. Will and borrowed together. Array, after will we use the first form of the verb. So C is incorrect. That basically leaves you with D as your answer. So there you go. नैन्सी कोशिश करेंगे यार, मैराथन में कॉन्सेप्ट्स में तो नहीं जा सकते ज़्यादा, और क्रिटिकल रीजनिंग इज़ वन ऑफ दोज एरियाज वेर यू नीड टू नो द अप्रोच ऑफ एवरी क्वेश्चन टाइप. तो उसके लिए पास्ट में सेशंस लिए हुए हैं, इसी चैनल पे मिलेंगे, यू कैन गो अहेड एंड रिव्यू दोस. बट आज जो क्वेश्चंस आएंगे उनको डिस्कस कर लेंगे, उनके साथ आई कैन गो अहेड एंड टॉक अबाउट इट. क्वेश्चन नंबर 3. सो फिल इन द ब्लैंक्स. व्हाट्स योर टेक? Dimples, RK Nagar. Think of the difference between present perfect and simple past. When do we use which tense and why? This is something that I did cover during my grammar review series. कुछ 2-3 हफ्ते पहले मैंने एक पूरा सीरीज लिया था, उसमें एक सेशन टेंसेस पे डिवोट किया था हमने, है ना, जिसमें इन सब चीज़ों के बारे में बताया था. So you can go ahead and look at that there. Okay, so we are getting a lot of C's. Fabulous, fabulous. Okay, that sounds great. Okay, curare is basically a toxic substance that you derive from trees. So you've seen these movies where they show some tribals who dip the tip of their arrow in some poisonous substance. That's curious. And you guys are absolutely spot on यार. The answer is indeed option C. तो सबका सही हुआ है तो I think we can move on from this. Okay, here you go. Fourth. What's your take on fourth? Nancy, एक काम कर इसके बाद में ना जिन questions with the questions that you've struggled with, why don't you post them in our Facebook group? So if you're part of the batch, post it there and tag me. In case you are not a part of any batch and you are there in our CAT preparation iQuanta group, post it there, tag me. We'll look at it. अब तो पेपर में दिन ही कितने रह गए यार, तो जल्दी से जाके अपलोड करने का. If you watch your past videos, does that mean we are in past continuous? नहीं. It simply means that you are behind the schedule. जब upload किए थे तब क्यों नहीं देखे? That's what it means. Okay, question number 4. प्रतीक से सर सारे समझने में प्रॉब्लम हो रहा होता तो भाई उस केस में ना it basically means that we need to focus on the basics. देख in every question प्रॉब्लम कहीं ना कहीं से तो आती है, तो वो प्रॉब्लम कहाँ से आ रही है उसे आइडेंटिफाई करके फिक्स करेंगे तो फिर अगले स्टेप पे जा पाएंगे. So absolutely right guys, the correct answer is indeed option C. Once again you guys have knocked it out of the park, but these two questions were warm up, right? You know, in the XAT exam, the fill in the blank questions will typically have 3 or 4 blanks and they play a lot on confusables and challenging words. So let's try out something which is a lot closer to the XAT level. So here you go. सत्यम, डिसीजन मेकिंग के भी क्लासेस हुए हैं यार, वेबसाइट इस चैनल पे भी हुए हैं, वेबसाइट पे भी हुए हैं, तो देखो कहाँ क्या हो रहा है. अरे आदित्य यार, तूने डी तब किसी ने लिखा नहीं था तो मैंने देखा नहीं. द फ्लो ऑफ इकोनॉमिक डेटा इम्प्रूव ट्राइंग टू. How does revive make sense in the first blank? Revive, as close to revive is to bring something back to life or to bring something back in fashion, in business. तो फर्स्ट ब्लैंक में रिवाइव जा ही नहीं रहा. आरुषि, वेबसाइट पे आपको पिछले सालों के कट ऑफ्स मिल जाएंगे. यू कैन गो अहेड एंड हैव अ फेयर अमाउंट ऑफ आइडिया गोइंग थ्रू दोज. नहीं तो मैं ग्रुप में एक बार फिर से डाल दूंगा वंस द सेशन इज ओवर. ओके, सो यू कैन check it from there. Gaurav, same for you. Okay, so I am getting a lot of A's, I'm getting a lot of B's. So conflict is a great clarifier. In a conflict, the opposing individuals contacts ally. अरे अब यार ये an ally is somebody who's your supporter. So opposing ally तो नहीं हो सकता. So C gets ruled out for sure. Opposing protagonists, opposing counsels, बाकी सब तो चल जाएगा. Not only come to a better understanding of each other's argument, but are forced to reflect on the cogency and clarity. So notice when you have and, the two words need to be similar. Okay, so what is cogency? So if an argument is cogent, it means that the argument is very clearly expressed. It is very persuasive. It gives you strong reasons to believe it. So you definitely, right? Did you notice clarity is positive? So you know that you need a positive word here. So cogency is positive, can go, but weakness can't go. In option D, illogicality, that's a negative word. You can rule it out. Conviction, on the conviction and clarity, yeah, this can still work. So you notice we've already managed to reach A versus E. Conflict prevents one from becoming bewitched into thinking that there is only one truth. That can work. Senile, what is senile? Senile is somebody who is old and has, as a result, lost some of his ability to think. So senility can only come with age. It cannot come from arguments. So you can rule this out. So our best answer is going to be option A. Mayank says you cannot have two opposing protagonists. हो सकता है यार, वो एक टाइम था जब दो अपोजिंग हो गया तो एक प्रोटैगनिस्ट एक एंटागनिस्ट होगा, मगर आजकल तो सब शेड्स ऑफ ग्रे चलते हैं ना. So there can be two opposing main characters. Okay, so there you go. So the best answer is going to be option A. Any word whose meaning is not known to you, then you can ask. Bewitched is if you're extremely attracted to something or completely controlled by something, then you're bewitched. Dialectical, ये philosophy से आता है यार ये word. Discovering what is true by considering opposite theories. So there's a dialectical method. Okay, और क्या है इसमें? Hexed. Hex is an evil spell, something that brings bad luck and trouble for you. So if you're hexed, somebody has cast that evil spell on you. और क्या? Teleological, again philosophy से आता है. Teleological is where you look at the end. Okay, so it involves the belief that everything has a purpose or a use or an end point. So that's teleological, right? So there you go. Nancy, मैं यार WhatsApp में ना we have a lot of groups. I am not in all of those. So मेरे लिए तो Facebook पे जाओगे तो ठीक है, अब उस कम्युनिटी पे पोस्ट कर सकते हो WhatsApp में भी. उसमें ना लिख देना कि विक्रांत सर को भेज दो. So somebody will pass it on to me and then I can get back. Right? कोशिश करेंगे फिर. चलिए और कुछ. All right. So that's question number 5. With that, now let us get into RC. Okay. तो ये रहा हमारा पैसेज 1. पैसेज 1 है तो इट इम्प्लाइज एक पैसेज 2 भी आएगा, तो देख लेने का. हाँ, तो करें शुरू. लेट मी नो वंस यू हैव रेड इट. जब पढ़ लें तो बता दीजिएगा. Dimple says, how to improve the score in VALR? By attempting more questions correctly. That's how. ज़्यादा सवाल सही करो, ज़्यादा सवाल करो, ज़्यादा सवाल सही करो, स्कोर ज़्यादा आता है उससे. Okay, so switching over to the next paragraph. Here it is. All right, so here is the next one. I'm assuming that you guys have read it. भाई सत्यम नहीं पढ़ा तो बताने की जरूरत नहीं है भाई. Okay. hypothalamus. In the words of Nana Patekar, छोटा दिमाग होता है इधर. That's hypothalamus. Okay, so आरसी समझ नहीं आ रहा. अरे ग्लैंड नहीं होती है वो, इट्स अ पार्ट ऑफ द ब्रेन. Oh damn, I took off the jacket and left the mic there. Thank you for the reminder. So yeah, I know. विष्णु बिल्कुल ठीक पहचाना आपने. चले, सो अब एक काम करो, पहले क्वेश्चंस कर लो, then we can come back to the passage and discuss it if you want to. So here is question number 6. Which one of the following is the author most likely to agree with? अच्छा, अभी हाइपोथैलेमस पे डीपर डिस्कशंस चल रहे हैं. Okay, so A, B, D. Okay, we've gotten these. So let's check. Humans have a pansha. Pansha is a special liking. Okay, so this word has two pronunciations, a British pronunciation and an American pronunciation. The British pronunciation is pasha. It is a word of French origin, so you'd have to speak it as if you were Himesh Reshamia, nasal sounds. Pasha. The American pronunciation is penchant. So it basically means a special liking for something. So humans have a pasha for considering themselves superior to all the species around the world. So do humans have this tendency? Humans consider themselves superior to all species is not mentioned in the passage, and because it's an inference based question, I think the label that we apply is can't say. Okay, B. We underestimate the impact of our biological and physical experiences. Yeah, there is this part in the second paragraph. I'm just going to read it out from the passage. It says, what if all parts of us, including our minds, are deeply biological and our physical experiences are far more meaningful and richer than we have been willing to accept? What if we are all animals? And then later in the passage, the author says, it might well be in the rallying of our own bodily resources that our greatest opportunities lie. So from those parts, we can definitely infer B. Humans are nowhere near to animals when it comes to accepting their bodily flaws. So humans consider themselves to be superior. In fact, they don't even consider themselves inferior. So C can be termed false. D, people do not like the idea of humans being considered different from their animalistic selves. Humans don't like to consider themselves closer to their animal selves. It's not about different. So even this can be termed not true. E, our ancestors have always underestimated the impact of our biological and physical experiences. We don't know. We do that. Whether our ancestors did that or not is something that the passage is silent on, and therefore E is also can't say. So the only option which is true is B. So in an inference based question, that's what we actually go by and choose that as our answers. Right? So therefore B. So what did we learn? Whenever a question says the author is most likely to agree with, it is basically an inference based question. You are supposed to figure out the conclusion which is valid on the basis of the information supplied by the passage. Creating a mental overview of the passage comes in really handy in such questions, and therefore that's one important skill that we try to develop. Seventh, okay. Purple Unicorn, Ayush, Aryan, HTG and Aditi are the first five. जिसमें से आयुष ने delete कर दिया तो Aditi enters the top five. So we are getting A, we are getting C. A में लिखा है by introducing a new way to strike a perfect balance between humans and different species. Yeah, the author is basically highlighting the importance of our bodies by talking about the fact that it, just to quote the passage, okay, just reading the lines for you from the last paragraph. In other words, our bodies might well be our best and most effective tool in the effort to strike a new balance. It is the balance which is new, it is not the way which is new. Moreover, you're trying to strike a balance between humans and the rest of the living world, different species. So you notice this is a problem. So this new way is a problem, different species instead of the rest of the world, and if you focus on those things, you'd realize that C is definitely better than A, and that is why I think most of you have shared that as your answer. So absolutely perfect. Okay, here is the next question. Okay, A, B, E. Okay, so let us see. So what do you think? What does this particular passage really talk about? So let's take this as an opportunity to revisit the passage and talk about any part, any area that we may not be that comfortable with. क्यों बार-बार गायब हो रहा है? Okay. So what does this do? The difference between a person who's sleeping and a person who's dead. So when somebody dies, it's different from somebody who is sleeping, and then this part is not all that relevant in the larger scheme. Just introduces a minor aside that if you have Alzheimer's, if you forget your identity, don't you become a little less human? But then difference between death and sleep. Then these end of life stages prick our imaginations. They confront us with some unsettling ideas. We don't like to face the possibility that irreversible biological processes in our bodies can snuff out the stunning light of our individual experience. Basically, we are fascinated by such stages, such situations, but we refuse to accept that death will be the end of us. We deny death. The trouble for us is that this story that we are not really our bodies but some special separate thing has made a muddle of reality. I am not my body, I have a soul, the soul transfers. So he says thinking in this particular manner muddles the reality. So this basically tells you that the author thinks we are just the cells that make up our body and nothing more. So problems flow from the notion that we are split between a superior human half and the inferior mortal body of an animal. In short, we have come to believe that our bodies and their feelings are a lesser kind of existence. But what if we are wrong? What if all parts of us, including our minds, are deeply biological and our physical experiences are far more meaningful and richer than we have been willing to accept? What if we are all animals and not split between? So he's saying, yeah, people think they have a superior human half and the inferior mortal body of an animal, and whatever is experienced by the body is considered inferior, but that's not the case. According to the author, we are animals, we are just the body and nothing more. Then he says, thinking along these lines is wonderful. If you accept that you're an animal, you get opportunities and tools for positive change. One of those changes is bonding. So you get oxytocin, basically you get a lot of happy hormones delivered to you in using the dog as an example. And then, in other words, our bodies might well be our best and most effective tool in the effort to strike a new balance between humans and the rest of the living world. If we can tip ourselves more into a bonding frame of mind, we might find it easier to recognize the beauty and intelligence. So there you go. So basically, humans are not superior to animals. We are just another animal. You accept it and you'll find the road ahead. So let us see. Now, when it comes to the main idea questions, you remember whatever options we are confused between. So abhi mere ko A mila, B mila, D mila. What do we do in those cases? First up, before you go to the answer choices, remind yourself of two things. Number one, what is the subject matter of the passage? What does this passage deal with? What is the topic? You say, yeah, human beings should think of themselves as their body, as animals. They're just other animals. And what is the purpose? The purpose is to influence us. There is a very clear-cut opinion given here. That hey, you may think of yourself as something that transcends your body, but in reality you just like an animal. And if you think along these lines, you'll find resources that will help you become happier. So now that you combine these two things, you go, humans should accept the fact that they're not in a different and in a higher league than other animals. So A basically says that, hey, you're not superior to other animals. Hell, the passage says that you are an animal. तो other की जरूरत क्यों है यहाँ पे? सोचो. Other would still mean that you're somehow different. You see, it says that you're similar to other animals. That's not what the focus of the passage is. In fact, at this juncture, I urge you to use this approach that I've so often recommended, a 180-degree approach. Go ahead. Think of it. If you were to write an essay proving this, you will go ahead and deliver multiple instances that prove that you're not superior to other animals. But does this passage do that? Then you guys shared what else? B with me? B दिया ना आपने और? Human beings should accept their genuine animalistic nature as human exceptionism is invalid. Exceptionalism is that we are somehow different from the rest of the world. So yeah, these things have been stated. On the face of it, nothing appears wrong. What else did we pick up? D, E. This, I think all of us will be able to rule out C because it talks about things that go beyond the scope of the passage. Humans should accept their defeat in the face of adversity. Where does it say that? That we should accept defeat. So I think at the max we can be confused between A and B. You can go ahead and use 180-degree approach and you'd realize that the passage is more about proving that, hey, accept the fact that you're just a body, you're just another animal. Then disproving the fact that, hey, people think they're superior, which is not the case. It's not about superior versus inferior. So if you use that 180-degree approach, you would find it very easy to eliminate A and narrow it down to option B. Well, D is so, forget pessimistic, this is not even the theme. And yeah, that's another way of looking at it. D is inconsistent with the tone. Is the tone negative? The author ends the passage on, accept it and you can heal yourself. Whereas this says give up, nothing can be done. Definitely wrong. Okay, so A. Here is the next one. Valid inference. Another conclusion, inference based question. Okay, Mayank, I see that. Hi Shivam, late ho gaya aaj thoda. Ayush says, what is the 180-degree approach? Okay, basically 180 degrees is a U-turn. So normally when you solve main idea questions, you look at this question and then you think of which of the following is the main idea. 180-degree approach in a main idea question means that you think of, okay, this is a main idea of some passage, this answer choice. So what kind of passage is supposed to be written from this? So far I've managed to see option C, option B, D. Okay, so B, C and D have been picked up. So let's check. Option B, humans do not like to confront anything that disturbs their individual experience. So yeah, remember the second paragraph which talks about these end of life stages prick our imagination, they confront us with some unsettling ideas. We do not like to face the possibility that irreversible biological processes in our bodies can snuff out the stunning light of our individual experience. Yeah, so B can be termed true on the basis of the first 2-3 lines of the second paragraph. C, humans are obsessed with the idea of escaping death. Hey, we don't like to confront the idea of death. But how do we know that we want to escape death and that we are obsessed with it? We don't want to face it. Does that mean that we are trying to avoid it and are putting in a lot of effort towards it. Can't say. D, humans have ambivalent feelings about their animalistic traits. Ambivalent basically means that you're not sure. If I'm ambivalent, I'm not sure. Whereas according to the passage, humans are very clearly people who feel that they have a superior human half and they have an inferior bodily half. So they're not ambivalent, they are sure that they are not their body, they are something more. So this ambivalent thing is actually false. What else? Anything else that you guys have picked up? Humans are protective of their individual experience. We don't know. So again, can't say. So B is the only one that can be termed true on the basis of the second paragraph, and therefore that is the one that should be chosen as our answer. Okay, so here is the next question. Take your time and then we'll see. Mayank, that's absolutely okay. Yaar. The whole purpose here is to ensure that we get our thinking realigned. Sorry, I forgot to highlight the part. This is the part that was supposed to be highlighted. So this highlighted text. बोल्ड करना भूल गया मैं इसे. Okay. So you actually see this used a lot with candles. One by one she snuffed out the candles. So maybe that can help. So first is, what is a simile? Simile is where two things are compared, two unlike things are compared with each other with the help of words or expressions like, as though. So it's not a simile. It is not a proverb either. A proverb is a very popular saying. They are usually complete sentences. Honesty is the best policy kind of a thing. Okay, then so which means that it is definitely a phrasal verb. So it basically shifts to the second half. If you snuff out a candle, you stop it or you destroy it. That should help. So कैंडल डिस्ट्रॉय नहीं करते, खाली बुझाते हैं, therefore B over D. And in case you wonder what a phrasal verb is there are times when you use a phrase where you use a verb along with a preposition or an adverb, usually a preposition, at times an adverb, in such a way that it leads to a new meaning altogether. Okay, so for example, have a look at this verb, call. Now if I say I will call you tomorrow, what does that mean? I'll call you tomorrow can mean I am going to give a phone call, or I will ask you to come over. Let's add a preposition to it. Call on. Now if I say I will call on you tomorrow, what does that mean? I will call on you tomorrow. Ishan, if you snuff out a life, then the life ends, stops. How would it be? How are you destroying the body as well there? Is it necessary? So the kind of violence that is needed for destroy will not typically be found in snuff out. So I will call on you tomorrow means that I will come and visit you. I'll meet you tomorrow. I will come to your house or your office, your workplace, and we'll meet. So that's a phrasal verb, completely different. Notice. So such things, they are phrasal verbs. So snuff out is just one of those phrasal verbs. Okay, with that, let's get into our poem. So shall we? Here you go. हाँ प्रतीक, हाँ आई थिंक मैं भी वही पढ़ रहा था कि यार ये कैसे लिखा ये वाला, अब समझ में आया मुझे. सो पढ़ लो, एंड आई नॉर्मली रेकमेंड दैट यू रीड द पोएट्री अलाउड. पेपर में बोल बोल के तो नहीं पढ़ सकते, तो मेंटली इसको थोड़ा अलाउड रखो. हाँ, मेंटली थोड़ा बोल बोल के पढ़ने का, एज इन इंटरनल सब वोकलाइजेशन करके पढ़ना. बल्ले बल्ले bards. Think of a bard is basically a poet. In a lot of pieces of writing, you would see bard referring to Shakespeare too. So all's written and nothing left of universe, humans, heart's pain and zest. What should the new poet write? How should modern bards delight, modern poets? How should they delight the people? Mimic the ancestors, copy the masters, or suffer an embarrassing plight like the ardent scientist who aimed for a eureka moment but discovered a known concept? अच्छा, plight का meaning यार, plight is basically a negative situation. Plight is when you are in a situation which is not positive for you. So an unpleasant condition, unpleasant situation. So done. A eureka moment is a moment when you have discovered something path breaking. नहीं, यहाँ पे ardent is okay. Nowadays we use this word called hardcore. If you're an ardent admirer of something, you're like a very hardcore admirer. See, basically, if you look at it, if you look at the word muse, muse is something that inspires an artist to create. Okay, yeah, the word does come from Greek mythology, but then muse is something that inspires an artist to create. So a lot of the times people are inspired by the person that they love, and they say so. But if you use all that, so there is something that sparks that creativity in you, but then you sell your soul to earn some money by writing things like a jingle. So are you not fooling that inspiration in order to survive when you could have done something greater, whatever? So you get the drift. Okay, here is the question. So बहुत rare है, I'm just combining poetry with critical reasoning in this question. तो करके देखते हैं. You know what an assumption is, right? So use that understanding and then see. Whew. So a lot of us, okay, so I hope that you are focusing on the except. So one of the following is not assumed by the poet. And how do you check whether something is an assumption or not? An assumption is something which brings in some necessary information without which you cannot arrive at your conclusion or your opinion. So we know that 4 of these are assumed, 1 is not. So let us see. There is nothing other than the universe and human heart for a poet to write about. Let's check. All is written and nothing left of universe, humans, heart's pain and zest. So if you negate it, and you can always check, if you negate it, you'd not be able to write the first 2 lines. And therefore first is an assumption, and therefore A can be ruled out. A poet should necessarily write about something fresh. Let's check. So what should you write? When everything is written. So if you're not writing something new, and look at this. So if you're not writing something new, you'll not be able to delight. You can infer it from these lines, and therefore even B is required as an assumption. Okay, mimicking ancestors or copying the masters causes embarrassment. Saying you can either do this or get embarrassed. Is he saying that doing this will cause an embarrassment? No, this is a separate idea than the preceding 2 lines. So even if you negate C, you can still retain every single line of the poem. C is not necessary. So let's keep it in the running. Nothing about his current life on earth is novel. Everything has been said. Figuratively speaking, he cannot put old wine in a new bottle. You cannot repeat what others have already done, because then that's termed a plight. So D and E are also necessary. If you contradict A, B, D and E, there are some parts of the poem that can no longer be stated, but that is not something that goes with C, and therefore you can pick up C as your answer. मयंक आप YouTube पे है यार, यूज द सीकर टू गो बैक एंड फोर्थ यार. वो ऑलरेडी ना आरसीज में दिक्कत ये होती है कि फिर फॉन्ट साइज बहुत छोटा करना पड़ता है इफ आई ट्राई टू फिट एवरीथिंग. हाँ, सो थोड़ा चैलेंज हो जाता है. देन हियर इज द नेक्स्ट वन. So this is more of your idea restatement question. वो D इसलिए चाहिए because look at the first two lines of the poem. All is written and nothing left. So nothing about his current life on earth is novel, क्योंकि कुछ नया मिल ही नहीं रहा ना. सब जो भी था बोलने के लिए वो सब तो लिखा गया यूनिवर्स और हार्ट के बारे में. The moment you negate D, if you say no, there are things about current life on earth which are novel, then he can go ahead and write about it. Then how is he saying that all is said? Then it will contradict it. Okay, so those of you are asking about D, okay, Ayush, Tushar, Pratik, Aryan, I hope that helps. So just try to focus on picking up the best answer. I think B can very easily be termed contradictory. Is it the poet who gets degraded? The poet sells his soul. Selling the soul basically means to do, or at least be willing to do something, no matter how wrong it is, in order to achieve your objectives. So if you look at C, C can be inferred from these lines, yes, but does it convey the meaning? Do they help you figure out that the poet sells his soul when he writes jingles and degrades the muses? So C is missing out on those parts. See, and we are trying to figure out what is conveyed through these lines. So C is only a part of it. It definitely gets it right that jingles are inferior to writing original poetry. But then D, a poet should not survive by degrading the muses. And E, though jingles can help a poet survive, they kill the soul of poetry. Even better, E captures the idea of selling the soul, degrading the muses. D misses out on the first two lines. So the best answer here is option E. And if we have a quick look at the poem itself, basically what does the poem talk about? The poet is lamenting the fact, or sad about the fact, that there is nothing left for him to write about, because all that could be written about has already been written. So he lists out some possible options available to the new poet: mimic the ancestors, copy the masters, sell his soul. So in the middle of the poem, the poet also hints at what would happen if he did not do one of the aforesaid three options. He may end up writing something that is already been written about. So thoda pessimism dikh raha hai. The poet is pessimistic, is not very hopeful. He's assuming that there is nothing other than the universe and human heart for a poet to write about. then you necessarily have to write about something fresh, and then there is nothing new left to write about. So that's basically what the poem is centered around. Okay, bhai, ye does not tell. It's written here. And although it looks like a question, this is a rhetorical question here. So Mayank, you have it right in these lines here. Okay, so with that, let me take you over to the next two questions. You'd have directions. Go ahead, read those and then answer. So for instance here, question number 13 is a paragraph-based critical reasoning question, the kinds that we get in the exam. And just a reminder, in paragraph-based critical reasoning, there are three components. Okay, so we have a paragraph, we have the options, and we have a question stem. So in these questions, we always begin here. So start by reading the question stem, then go to the paragraph, and then to the options. Okay, so remember this sequence. Don't start with the paragraph, that's a waste of time. So please go ahead, read it, and then we'll see. अच्छा, oh, I probably misread it. अरे नैन्सी, ये अब सेशन के बाद कर लेना यार, 11th में मेरे से डिस्कशन. Maulik, bhai, this is as basic a sweatshirt as you can get. है ना, basic grey, plain. सोच. हाँ. Okay, so we are getting B, we are getting E. So even if you're confused between two options, please make sure that you do share that with me. Exactly, yes, Kanishk. 1 or 2? Okay, B versus E. So let's see. So even if you go with B, B basically says that they are less likely to watch TV during the day. They say they are less likely to watch TV during the day. They can watch it in the evenings, in the nights. So compare B with E. Notice, would most undermine. So the assumption here is that they are the largest demographic. They are also less likely to work as compared to the rest of the population. So we are assuming that when they do not do anything, they watch TV. So because they are the largest demographic, they also constitute the largest group of people who are watching TV. B negates it. E negates a part of one premise. So if you compare, B is going to weaken it more because it contradicts the assumption. E contradicts a part of the premise. So it's not that E does not weaken, B will weaken it more. So whenever you see more words like most, you may need to get into comparison because more than one answer choice can go ahead and do it. Okay, C also. Okay, a smaller percentage of senior citizens are currently retired than in previous generations. That's irrelevant. As long as they are the largest demographic in the country at the moment, whether that number is smaller than the previous generations or not is irrelevant. As long as they are the largest demographic, the argument holds true. Okay. क्या बोल दिया ऑगस्टस ने? चलिए, so here is the next one. Once again, you know where to start and then we'll talk. नहीं मयंक, वो तो रीजन नहीं है, वो इररेलेवेंट दूसरे कारण से था, है ना? ओके, है नो, अरे मयंक ऐसे तो नहीं सोचते. Okay, so those of you who are a little late to practice critical reasoning, see, what is an assumption? An assumption is an unstated premise, an unstated reason. So in critical reasoning, we deal with something called an argument. The argument basically has this component called conclusion. The conclusion is supported by some premises, also known as reasons. But then there are times when we leave some of our premises unstated. Such unstated premises are called assumptions. So it's basically premises and assumptions. They're basically your reason or basis. The only difference is premises are stated, they are visible. Assumptions are unstated, they are invisible. So when they ask us for assumptions, first and foremost, we need to figure out the conclusion and then the premises and then think of the gap, okay, the new information that is necessary in order to arrive at the conclusion. And whenever we are confused, we engage in the negation test. We take the opposite of the answer choice to be true and check for the impact on the argument. Just a sec, yeah, just a sec, huh? Just give me one tiny minute. And while you guys deliberate this particular option among yourself, I will see you guys very, very shortly. Just give me a minute. Okay, sorry to keep you guys waiting, but a democratic society cannot exist unless its citizens have established strong bonds of mutual trust. Okay, so basically, this is the conclusion. Now, on what basis have we arrived at this conclusion? What is the basis for it? So, widespread reliance on movies and electronic media for entertainment has an inherently corrosive effect on democracy. Why? Because it cannot exist without strong bonds of mutual trust. Such bonds are formed and strengthened only by these things. So if movies have a corrosive effect, we are basically saying that movies go against it. And the options that I think you guys have shared are A versus D. Let's check A. Anyone who relies on movies and electronic media for entertainment is unable to form a strong bond of mutual trust with a citizen. And then the other option that you guys shared was what? D. Generally makes people less likely. So I think the difference here is unable versus less likely. So which one of these two is going to be better for the argument? If you rely on movies, electronic media, you cannot form a strong bond, or you are less likely to participate in groups outside. Which one would work better? So actually, if you look at it, the conclusion talks about corrosive effect. Does it destroy, will it destroy democracy, or will it corrode democracy, damage democracy? Because if you go by unable, then what will happen? Then democracy will not corrode, then democracy will be destroyed. So if you look at this corrode and unable, you'd realize that unable is not needed. If A is the assumption, then it will lead to the end of democracy. It will not lead to a corrosion. And that is why I'd say D is required for the, if you follow A, the conclusion won't be corrosive effect. Conclusion will be it will end democracy. So D over A because of just this. So that's your critical reasoning, guys. Yeah, just one word is a very difficult question. And I know A is something that appears to be a very likely answer because it directly states what feels like an assumption. But negate it, okay? If you negate it, what will happen? Anyone who relies on movies and electronic media for entertainment can form a strong bond of mutual trust with a citizen. If you negate it, you realize that it does not damage the argument. So negation test could have helped you. With that, let's go ahead and solve another passage. So let's get ready. हाँ थोड़ा vocabulary, थोड़ा एक word यार. Critical reasoning में there are times when a single word can change your answer completely. So let's start. Arey Rajnandan, you can. You can. हाँ Shivam, absolutely यार. GMAT material, GMAT critical reasoning is really good to go through. Yeah, you can definitely. अरे कुणाल GMAT CR कर ले, मिल जाएगा. GMAT club बोल के वेबसाइट है, वहाँ देख ले. हाँ, otherwise हाँ, you can definitely look at GMAT official guide and also. Now I can't really talk about the illegal ways of accessing those questions here, but you know, if you know, you know. Okay, taking you over to the next one. Last 10 seconds. Okay, and here is the last paragraph. Okay, so let's go ahead and dive into the questions now. So here is your question number 15. ज़्यादा नहीं यार मौलिक, ZAT के passages तो relatively छोटे होते हैं. So for that matter, if you look at this particular passage, it has around 400 words. I think 410, 411. So ज़्यादा बड़ा तो नहीं है यार passage. Mayank is asking, who are these two guys? Man. मान लेके चल थोड़े बड़े लोग थे, इतने से काम चल जाएगा. The first one, Stephen, is basically a fictional character. Okay, he is the protagonist of Joyce's autobiographical novel. So this is autobiographical novel that he wrote, a portrait of the artist as a young man, very popular. So refers to that. Okay, so the answer to 15, according to the passage, why is our ability to experience awareness most at risk? So let's see. Let's see. Where in the passage are we talking about it? So this is the paragraph that deals with it. The answer that mentions neural buzz is not stated in connection to losing the open awareness. So you can definitely rule out option A. So you're essentially looking for some answer choice that comes closest to this paragraph. So we are rarely alone. Is it mentioned? Solitude is fallen out of fashion. But then the idea is, even when you are alone, you are with your cell phone. Here it is going to be interpreted as whether you have others around you or not. So as a standalone entity, this will be a little off. Solitude is not appreciated. Is that the core reason behind this ability at being at risk? So if I ask you what is required to experience, required for our ability to experience awareness, open awareness, then if you pick up something from this particular passage, you'd say that the key thing that is required is to change this paradigm, allow our mind to daydream, allow our mind to drift away in thoughts. Being alone can help you with it, but even if you are alone and you don't allow this, open awareness can still not happen. So the primary thing is giving your brain, your mind the ability to float away. So when you look at C and D, they are working on that being alone part, whereas E is the one that focuses on losing ourselves in a reverie, and that is what makes E the better choice as compared to either C or D. Here is the next one. Go ahead, go to the relevant paragraph and answer it. Karam Darji, don't count on that, yaar. If you want to apply to GIM, it's a good college, you should. Okay, absolutely right, guys. D. Both of them were diagnosed with ADHD. Nah. What the passage says is that had they been around today, they might well have received a diagnosis of ADHD. It does not mean that they were diagnosed with ADHD. So D is otherwise absolutely correct. A is easy to rule out. Okay, 17th. What is the lesson that you've gotten from the passage? Okay, so A, C, B. Okay. भाई देख ले, ऑथर का इंटेंट पूछा, इंटेंट। बी तो मेरे ख्याल से इजी है दोस्त, रूल आउट करना इस केस में। Once again, use the 180-degree approach. If you want to write, let us say, a passage to support B or D, for example, then would you write this kind of passage? Or think of, before you go to the answer choices, think of the subject matter and the purpose. Start from there and then see. So what is it that the author has criticized? कि जो creative flight of fancy है वो नहीं मिलता है ना. The passage talks about different forms of attention that arise from the interplay of different parts of brain, then says that culture and technologies also influence our attention. In the present day, with smartphones, other gadgets, we are at risk of losing our ability for open awareness or receptivity to random thoughts that float across our mind. So that's the focus. So is this consistent with the passage? Yes. Is B even there in the passage? No. C, our focus is constantly shaped by a conflict? No. Where does it say that it is shaped by a conflict? Both of them give you two different types of approaches or two different ways of looking at it. Attention is a result of many factors including culture and technology. Yes, but what is his intent? Think of it. So it's not that it's factually incorrect, but open awareness is dispensable. According to the author, this part is important or not? And pathological is it's a disease. Is that what the author says? Is the author writing to prove that it is dispensable and pathological? This contradicts what the author is telling us. E should be the first one that we eliminate. E is the exact opposite of what he has conveyed. The author says that, hey, people think of it as dispensable and pathological, but that should not be the case. He basically says that should not be the case. Why would you choose E? So I think through that process of elimination, you'd realize that A comes closest to his intent. So that's the best answer choice. So when it comes to that, you do find options which are ambiguous at times. You, in at least 2-3 questions, you'll see that there is no option which gives you the best answer. So you're just dealing with what comes closest and then mark that. Okay. So that's your passage 2. Here is one standalone question, question number 18. Here is the question. So another critical reasoning question for you here. अग्रवाल विद 2 रेड फ्लैग्स. हाँ यार, फॉर्म वॉर्म तो सारे ही भरते हैं, इस बार भी भरा हुआ है. मेरा सेंटर मेरे घर से अराउंड 82 किलोमीटर्स अवे, but thankfully we need the reporting time is 12:30, so I'll try and go and then see कैसा रहता है पेपर. कोशिश करूँगा चला ही जाऊँ. वो बेसिकली किसी ना किसी फैकल्टी का ना स्टूडियो में रहना ज़रूरी है. तो ALP सर का सेंटर तो बहुत ही दूर है, तो वो नहीं जा रहे. तो अगर वो स्टूडियो में आए तो मैं पेपर देने चला जाऊँगा, और स्टूडियो से फिर लाइव हो जाएंगे हम लोग 5 बजे. एज इन 5 बजे तो नहीं, आप 5:20 5:30 तक लाइव हो पाएंगे. लेट्स सी. आंसर्स आंसर्स आंसर्स. हाँ हाँ बिल्कुल ब्रो, एब्सोल्युटली यार, यहीं यूट्यूब पे कोशिश करेंगे. आई मीन द मोमेंट आई रीच माई फोन इज व्हेन आई विल स्टार्ट टॉकिंग टू द टीम. और पैट कमिंस, किशन कौन है भाई पैट कमिंस? कोई क्रिकेटर है ना मेरे ख्याल से, मुझे फ़ोटो देखनी पड़ेगी यार उसकी, अगर ऐसा है तो। पैट कमिंस जैसा दिखता हूँ मैं, पता नहीं यार। पैट कमिंस तो हैंडसम है यार, मुझसे ज़्यादा हैंडसम है फॉर श्योर, और एथलेटिक तो पक्का ही मुझसे ज़्यादा है। एक इमेज में इसकी पार्टनर भी दिख रहे हैं यार, माय गॉड, कपल गोल्स। बड़ा इजी होता है डिस्ट्रैक्ट होना। ओके, so what do we want to do? This is a step 1, right? Which of the following if true casts the most serious doubt? So this question basically asks you to weaken the argument. How do we weaken an argument? We weaken an argument by questioning the premises or the assumptions of the argument. So what is the conclusion here? Let me go ahead and highlight the conclusion. That's the conclusion. So by this is the conclusion. On what basis are we saying this? Minister made a plea. After that, the peak hour traffic to South Bombay reduced by 7%. There were no major closures of business in South Bombay. So obviously it was the minister's plea which led to this downfall. So basically, in this argument, there are two things happening. Minister said something, and after that, whatever he said, whatever plea he made happened. So we are saying that because the reduction happened after minister's plea must be the factor that led to the reduction. The assumption here is that no other factor went on to influence the traffic to South Bombay. Okay. So if I look at A says yeah, people had the practice of sharing taxis even beforehand. Okay, so this was something which was in place even before the plea. This is something that is in place even after the plea. So it does not explain why there was a reduction of 7%. Does it give you some other factor? This in fact tells you that yeah, sharing taxis was happening already. So if the traffic has reduced now, it must be because of what minister has said. It does not help you question the premise or the assumption. So does A weaken? No, it does not weaken. What else have you picked up? E strengthens. So you can rule it out. How is B relevant for this argument? B says that minister shares his car with others. So after his plea, why is the traffic come down? Was he causing 7% of the traffic by going? Arre nahi. How about C? Construction of flyovers has greatly reduced the number of lanes available for commuters in major streets leading to South Bombay during the past 6 months. Okay. So number of lanes available has reduced. So we are saying that okay, because the number of lanes have reduced, then this can lead to a scenario where we are saying that okay, because of those reduced number of lanes, 7% of the people decided not to go. So it can happen, but it is not very plausible. Imagine if I need to go to my office. I'm a commuter, right? I travel on that route daily. So it means that I'm basically going to my workplace and then coming back using that route. Will people stop going to their office because there is construction happening? Very unlikely, yaar. That's not exactly how offices work. It can happen, but does not appear very likely. Let's look at D. Over the past 2 months, introduced 500 new point-to-point buses connecting various parts of the city to South Bombay. So if this has happened, this can explain the reduction. That people who used to take their own vehicle, now some of them have started taking these buses because of these 500 new buses which are available now, point to point on top of that. So this tells us that hey, this can be a reason. And D, C and D both can happen, but this tells us that D is more plausible than C. And therefore, I will go ahead and lean more towards D. Okay. So D over C. So C could also have happened, but then when you say most serious doubt, you need to get into that plausibility as well, right? Now, adding flyover will support the plea, but C does not say that flyovers are getting added. It says there is construction going on because of which fewer lanes were available. So yes, if there is traffic jam, you may not go, but commuters would normally not stop going to their workplace because lesser or fewer lanes. Okay, when 19 to 21, please read the directions. We did talk about A, Dibyajyoti. We did talk about A, that A does not weaken. A does not tell you that either the premise or the assumption is wrong. Huh. So in each one of these questions, you'd get a sentence. Some part of the sentence is highlighted. Then there are 4 options which may help improve the sentence, that part which is highlighted. If you think that the highlighted part is already right as it is and there is nothing that improves it, then you go ahead and choose E. Okay. So here is the 19th. Go ahead, look at it and tell me what you think. हाँ, वो जो 2 मंथ वर्सेस 6 मंथ है ना, अगर पैराग्राफ ध्यान से देखोगे तो उसमें ये नहीं बताया कि रिडक्शन 6 महीने में हुई है। अपील 6 महीने पहले की थी। बाकी डेटा आज का है। बाकी तो मतलब रिडक्शन है, ओवर द पीरियड ऑफ 6 मंथ्स हुई, कैसे हुई वो बताया नहीं हुआ। Okay, so here the answer, okay, anything wrong in the underlined part? To analyze what to look about. Is this the correct preposition to use? The phrasal verb that we need is look for. When you look for something, it means that you hope to get something that you want or need. Harish was looking for work as a teacher. They're looking for a partner in a new business venture. So what we need is not about but for. Right? So I definitely need for. And this E is also gone. So what's the difference between A and B? To analyze versus to analyzing. Here we need the to infinitive, right? To infinitive involves the first form of the verb, and that is why A is right and B is wrong. So A over B. So there you go. So A it is. हाँ, look out for होता D में तो सोच सकते थे, but otherwise if I look at the options which are here, this is what we need to choose. And here is your next one. Go ahead, think over it carefully and then we talk. हाँ जी, so यार, do you notice this then? So there is very clearly a comparison, and if you're comparing two things, you are supposed to use the comparative degree of an adjective. So instead of long, what we need is longer for sure. So it boils down to A versus B. Since it took longer, since it takes longer, what do we go with? Now, if you put a took here, how would we justify the present tense here? है ना? So present ही रखना पड़ेगा दोनों तरफ, तो ये भी हट गया. That leaves you with B. So that's absolutely correct. Okay. Here is the next one. And I think most of you who know the basics of pronouns, you'd find it easy. Plural noun singular verb. अभी तो that है इसलिए nose है, but is that okay? So I think the first very easy thing that we can look at is, or do is, yeah, which is used for other than persons, right? Who is used for persons, which is used for everything else. But here, because we are talking about persons, the correct pronoun to use is who and not which. So that's one. And since we are talking about people, we cannot use that. This is singular. What we need is plural. So you can use those. So that won't work. And who works. But then if you're using those, that becomes plural. So you cannot have a singular verb. So C becomes our best answer choice. Okay. So that's 21st. Let's go ahead and work on another poem. Okay. So here you go. Check this out. Those of you who still have a tender spot in their heart for their ex, this is something that will probably resonate with you. जीके एंड डीएम, यार अंकित, अगले 2 दिन क्या है मुझे चेक करना पड़ेगा. अगर डिसीजन मेकिंग अभी तक नहीं हुआ तो एक तो डिसीजन मेकिंग हो ही जाना चाहिए. जीके भी मुझे पता नहीं, मैं चेक कर लूंगा. अदरवाइज आई विल आस्क तरुण सर टू टेक अ सेशन. लेट्स सी. मयंक तू विक्रम सेठ की पोम को यू बोल रहा है, हे भगवान. So I think as poems go, it's in that sense okay, right? So the poem describes a time when in a restaurant the poet hears the name of someone he loves dearly. He follows the woman who said the name. He tries to get his emotions under control but fails to in that moment. And towards the end, he says that he cannot stop loving. He hopes that one day he can get over his love, but he does not know when that's going to happen. So that question. So in that sense, I think generic. नहीं जीके नहीं है तो कोई बात नहीं, वो मैं तरुण सर को बोल दूंगा यार, अपने फैकल्टी घर के हैं सब, so we can definitely plan for GK as well. So let's go. Here is your question. Okay, so when I looked at it, one of the things that I focused on was the tone. So when I look at this, or this, or this, are these consistent? Is the author bitter? Is he angry and vengeful? Is he lamenting? When you lament, you are like very sad. Where is he sad? Where is he lamenting? Maybe a tiny bit here. But then this is more an immediate reaction of the fact that he heard the name suddenly, unexpectedly. But then look at this. Look at the lines that come immediately afterwards. To hear just once more that sirenic sound. Sirenic is melodious, tempting, alluring. He wanted to hear that name again. And then this comes to present. Notice? So I think these definitely help us rule out A, B, and E. They're not consistent with the tone of the poem. That leaves you with C and D, which I think is very easy. Childhood friend. Friend? No. Right. So that tilts the balance towards D. Okay. Moreover, D also gives you a very important part conveyed by the last couple of lines. I'm not describing them in detail because I plan to ask some other things to you now. Okay, 23rd. Nancy, I talked about E in great detail, that we don't have enough to justify the use of lament. Okay, so what's your take? A or E? We are also getting D. So essentially A, the lady described the subject in detail. Arey, he just heard the name. So easy to rule out. D, the poet broke many rules of grammar. Poet was not even talking. Moreover, where is grammar in it? Consonant vowels are just pronunciation of a name. So gets ruled out. So in this context, those consonants, those vowels basically talk about what? The name mentioned here. Right? So the best is E, which I think majority of us have actually gone on to pick up. So and with that, let's move over from the poem to this. So read the directions and then we'll talk. Okay, so you and I normally know these questions as para-jumbles. Now the difference between the CAT and the XAT is that in the XAT, para-jumbles are multiple choice questions, so you also get options. Now I have labeled the sentences A, B, C, D, E. The XAT may not always label them as A, B, C, D, E. They typically also use they typically use the Roman numerals. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So there are years when they give us 4 sentences, there are years when they give us 5, but there are options available. So be mentally ready that instead of A, B, C, D, you can see Roman numerals, you can see other numerals, right? So maybe arranged accordingly. So here is the first one, and don't forget to use the answer choices in order to arrive at the answers, or in order to arrive at the answer fast. So let's get a crack at it. Let's take a shot at it. Okay. So we treat these as basically puzzles, right? So for instance, this is a clue. So when you say this period, which period, the era, which era, notable figures like Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, okay, literature, science, art and philosophy all experienced remarkable advancements during the Renaissance. Still be felt today. That's a clue. So if we start looking at this, can I say that this period, the only sentence where a period is referred to is in B, 14th to the 17th century. So I know that A should come after B. So any sentence where A comes before B, any option where A comes before B can definitely be ruled out. And if you similarly, if you look at C and D, you notice D is general as compared to C. D is talking about literature, science, art and philosophy, and C is talking about notable figures in art and science. So we normally go from general to specific. So that's there. E talks about today, whereas the others talk about sooner. So E should come at the end. So if you combine all of these things, what do you get? You'd be able to rule out E. So between A and B, which one should we choose? What's the difference? ADC versus DCA. So you notice DC is common to both. We just need to think of where to place A. Now if you place A away from B, if you insert something else between B and A, then the reference of this pronoun gets lost. So you can't do that, and therefore B. Okay, so use these clues and you can arrive at the answers. So the idea is, step 1, read all the sentences, highlight these clues, then pick up one clue. One clue, think of its utility and try to establish some kind of connection, some kind of mandatory pair. After that, you go to the answer choices and eliminate. For example, I could have very easily figured out that B and A definitely go together. It's a mandatory pair. I did not spend that kind of thinking. All I thought was, हाँ आएगा तो बाद में ही. It's only when the need arose that I dug deep. क्या पता सिर्फ इसी से 4 ऑप्शंस रूल आउट हो जाते, तो टाइम नहीं लगाना है. जो जो रूल आउट हो रहे हैं रूल आउट करो, बाकी कंपैरिजन देखो, करो आगे. So this process is going to be faster. Okay, try it out in the next one now. So read all the sentences, identify the clues, then pick up one clue, establish a connection, go to the options, eliminate. If it does not lead to a unique answer, pick up some other clue, eliminate. Do that and then we'll see. Nancy, chronology is one of the clues. We in fact used that to put E at the end in the previous question. Okay, so loads and loads of A's with some D's. So I think there are very few D's in it. So A is indeed the right answer choice. Should work. In fact, if you look at it, you notice E talks about fox hunting symbolizes this. So here it says fox hunting, here you're using it, and then you have and. So अगर 3 sentences में symbolizing है तो and वाला बाद में आना चाहिए. और इट वाला शुरू में नहीं रखें। सो ई ए, इनफैक्ट हाँ ये एंड में आना चाहिए, तो ये भी सिंबलाइजिंग है, तो आपके पास डेफिनेटली जो है बी लास्ट में आना चाहिए इन चारों सेंटेंसेस के, और डी is the what we typically call as the topic sentence should come at the beginning. So I look at it like D at the beginning, B at the end. Where am I getting that? So there is only one option which was there. So you can go ahead and pick it up. Okay. Here is the next one. All right. So a lot of options trickling in. B, C, D. Let's just go ahead and look at it. क्या करें इसमें? Human intelligence is a multifaceted concept. So this gives you the definition of human intelligence. The moment you look at this additionally, you realize this is a clue. Additionally tells you that the idea that is here is a continuation of the idea present in some other sentence. So which other sentence gives you a similar idea? Think of it. So that's something that we can look at. So notice D. E says the study of intelligence has led to the development of various intelligence tests and theories, each attempting to capture different aspects. So C introduces it, introduces the term. You have a definition. You are talking about the study that tries to capture different aspects. So it can work. I am not able to place B and D accurately, but let's see. अगर इसी से elimination शुरू करें तो option D पे आ जाएंगे यार. इसी से जाएं तो option D पे आ जाएंगे. If you look at option E, if you put D immediately after C, then the other three sentences need to talk about intelligence not being a fixed trait. So I mean, ideally I would prefer DB, but then I don't have it, so BD will have to do. So this is going to be the best answer choice. It is not the best way of arranging these sentences. Okay. सो वो सोचना पड़ेगा थोड़ा सा कि अनलाइक कैट जिसमें हम सोचते हैं यार सबसे अच्छा सीक्वेंस कौन सा, यहाँ पे सबसे अच्छा ऑप्शन कौन सा. वी हैव टू पिक अप द बेस्ट ऑप्शन. दैट मे नॉट बी द बेस्ट वे ऑफ अरेंजिंग दोस सेंटेंसेस. आई थिंक मोस्ट ऑफ अस हैव पिक्ड दिस अप. तो वो ऑप्शन ई कुछ लोगों ने चूज किया था, सो आई हैव गॉन ऑन टू टॉक अबाउट दैट एज वेल. इन दैट हेल्प्स. विद दैट, let's go ahead and look at a couple of poems. So standalone smallish things with one question each. So here's your poem 3. Why don't you read it once? And later I want you to go ahead and read the entire poem. This poem has 2 stanzas. I'm giving you only the first one here, and it will be followed by one question. फैक्ट फ्यूज यार थोड़ा क्वेश्चन सिलेक्शन पे काम कर. इट अपियर्स कि आप वो राउंड बेस्ड स्ट्रैटेजी शायद यूज़ नहीं कर रहे हैं, तो थोड़ा राउंड बेस्ड स्ट्रैटेजी यूज़ करो, उसके बाद देखते हैं क्या कर सकते हैं. I am silver and exact. I have no preconceptions. Should I give you a hint? This poem is actually titled So now when you say I am silver and exact, does it make sense? Speckles are tiny dots. So it's the mirror which is describing itself. By saying that it is exact, it tells you that the mirror believes it reflects exactly what it sees. It is honest. It has no preconceptions would also mean that it is not biased. It does not form any judgment, any opinion. And then it's unmisted by love or dislike, which carries this theme. Whatever I see, I swallow immediately. Just so basically just as it is. वो भी exactly दिखाता है यार. So here swallow basically would mean reflect. So it reflects whatever it sees honestly and without changing it. Oh, Pratik says, but how is a mirror pink? Array. Most of the time I meditate on the opposite wall. It is pink. Bhai, so the mirror is, the wall that faces the mirror is pink with speckles. I've looked at it so long. I think it is part of my heart, but it flickers. Faces and darkness separate us over and over. So flickers basically means that people keep on coming between the mirror and the wall. So it's using the term flickering for that. So mirror's view of wall is interrupted by the faces of the people and also by the darkness of the light in the room being turned off or it becoming night time when you won't see that reflection. Okay. So now that you've read the poem, go ahead and tell me what the answer should be. So पता है ना पोइट्री में बहुत सारे फिगर ऑफ स्पीच वाले सवाल पूछ लेते हैं ये लोग. So बताओ क्या चूज करोगे. I swallow. Rishabh, do you notice a personal pronoun used for a mirror and talking about the act of swallowing? A very clear example of personification. It is not a metaphor because in metaphor you compare two things. There's no comparison here in that sense. So it's a personified mirror. And therefore this metaphor, imagery is basically vivid description of a place. What is assonance? Assonance is when you use some words together that happen to have the same vowel sound in between. Right? So that repetition of a vowel sound is called assonance. Say now, if you look at this particular sentence, let me highlight some part. See this? These are three words that happen to have the same vowel sound in between. So this kind of trait is called assonance. For example, let me give you some more examples. If you say how, now, same repetition of that vowel sound. Let's just extend it. Brown cow. So that repetition of the vowel sound is assonance. And hyperbole is exaggeration. You say, I haven't seen you in 100 years. I haven't seen you for centuries. Exaggeration. Okay, so that's 27th, and 28th is based on another poem. Here is a brief extract for you. And a question where I have asked you to pick up a line that contains personification. So remember, personification is when an object is treated as if it were a person. So absolutely yes, D, it is the sun. People die. Sun of course does not die. When you give it that trait, that characteristic, of course you are treating it as a person. So that's 28th, and here are the directions for the next set. So answer each one of these questions on the basis of the information provided. So जो लिखा उसके हिसाब से करने का. So चलिए करते हैं. So Ishita, let me give you one more example. So do trees dance? People dance. So when you say the trees danced in the wind, you are equating them with people, when in reality we know it's just the wind that shakes them. है ना? The death lays his icy hands on the mortals. Death को hands दे दिए, तो person की तरह treat करा ना. So ऐसे उसको हम personification बोलते हैं. Here is your question number 29. Wait, D, E, B. Okay, this is basically an inference question. So you're supposed to go ahead and label true, false, can't say. So bacteria have become more averse to antibiotics. So we don't know that yet. Not from this paragraph, so can't say. Look at B. Our eating habits can significantly affect our health. So look at this. Unhealthy eating habits can reduce the efficacy of antibiotics, and antibiotics can be an important part of maintaining your health. And if they adversely affect it, they can significantly affect your health. So this is true. C. We should stop eating junk food to avoid risk of bacterial infections. It does not increase the risk of bacterial infection. It reduces the efficacy of the antibiotics. So it's not true. Bacterial infections have also grown over the years. Nullifying the effects of antibiotics cannot be determined. So B is the only one which is true, and therefore that should be the answer. तो थोड़ा और ध्यान से, all of the above तो यार एटलीस्ट सी तो बहुत इजी था रूल आउट करना. जैसे ही सी रूल आउट होता है, ई ऑटोमेटिकली रूल आउट हो जाता है ना. सो वी हैड टू गो अहेड एंड थिंक ऑफ दैट टू. हियर इज योर क्वेश्चन नंबर 30. Another inference based question. Go ahead and answer it. Okay, so a lot of options trickling in. So B, C, D. Let's look at C. People should be provided opportunities for playful experimentation, feedback, and reflection, as this will boost creativity and innovation. How do you know that? You sure C is true? See, this is basically for people who are trying to learn. This does not mention them. The learning thing is not mentioned here. It's not applicable to everyone. So this is important point missing in C. And in D, we are saying people like to be stretched using this method. Whereas it says people like to be stretched, and these are different methods that can be used for it. So D goes on to distort it as well. A, I'm sure all of you will manage to rule out, so I won't have to talk about this. So E also gets ruled out. C does not mention learning, gets ruled out. That essentially leaves you with B as being your best answer choice. And with that, let me take you over to your next question. So choose the grammatically correct sentence as your answer. Okay, so is it B? Is it C? So in C, run is not right. It should have been ran. So definitely see the wrong form of verb being used. So is it correct? No, it is not. So we can rule it out. B, A, okay, there are just two, so we can't use amongst. It has to be between. So A is incorrect. To make, to infinitive. So D also has an error. Documents and has. Should be documents have. So E is also wrong. So yep, the best answer choice is B indeed. तो ये कुछ नहीं यार, कुछ कुछ एरर्स हो सकते हैं ना. देखो अमंग वर्सेस बिटवीन आपको पता है, यहाँ पे टेंस का इशू, सब्जेक्ट वर्ब अग्रीमेंट का इशू, इन्फिनेटिव में 2 प्लस वर्ब्स फर्स्ट फॉर्म आएगा. आई थिंक वी नो दीज थिंग्स, वी जस्ट नीड टू गो अहेड एंड अप्लाई दीज. सो यार दिस इज व्हाट आई वाज कैरिंग फॉर यू टुडे, एंड दिस इज व्हाट आई वांट टू लीव यू विद. और जीके का मैं चेक करता हूँ, बताता हूँ आपको. एंड वी डू हैव आवर मैराथन्स हैपनिंग एवरी डे एट 5 PM. So do tune in tomorrow or day after, and thereafter on the day of the XAT for analysis too, and we definitely go ahead and catch up, right? So that's it for today. I look forward to meeting you once again. Don't forget to like the video, and if you're new, subscribe to the channel as well. I'll see you soon.